everybody, I'm Liz. I'm back again, and today we're talking about major capital improvements, which we call MCIs. DHCR's proposed amendments implement the HSTPA, and therefore they change the definitional requirement of what qualifies for a major capital rent increase. The proposed amendments now, they still require that the improvement be depreciable under the tax code. It needs to benefit all of the tenants, and it needed to have exceeded its useful life. But now there's this green requirement, which means it needed to be essential for the preservation, energy efficiency, functionality, or infrastructure of the entire building. If that wasn't specific enough, they added more language that says this could include heating, windows, plumbing, and roofing. It can't be for any cosmetic improvements, and it can't include operational costs. Now, these increases are subject to what's called a reasonable cost schedule. Typically, the costs need to be within this, what the DHCR considers reasonable, and if not, the DHCR will just completely disregard any costs that exceed what they deem reasonable. You can ask for a waiver. It typically requires a letter from a licensed engineer or architect, and they need to certify that the costs were reasonable under the circumstances. The calculation of how much a tenant's rent would be increased depended on whether or not the building had 35 or fewer units, or more than 35 units. So now if the building is on the smaller side, has 35 or fewer units, the mathematical formula amortizes out the rent increase based off of 12 years, whereas if it has more than 35 units, it's 12 and a half years. So bottom line, you're gonna get less bang for your buck. Another change in major capital rent increases, they're now temporary. They're only good for 30 years, and then after 30 years, it's going to be removed from the legal regulated rent. Major capital improvements have always been capped. Historically, they've been capped at 6% of a tenant's rent. And the HSTPA caps it at 2%. DHCR has now expanded the types of violations that will prohibit the DHCR from granting a major capital improvement application. DHCR needs documentation showing that as of the date the MCI application is going to be granted, all violations have been inspected by an architect or engineer, and that architect or engineer has certified that those conditions have been repaired. This video only talks about some of the highlights to the changes to the Rent Stabilization Code. If you have any questions about pending MCI applications or an MCI application you were thinking about filing, give us a call.
These videos were prepared as a service to clients and other friends of Bora Goldstein to report on significant developments that may be of interest to our clients and friends. The content is general and for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as legal advice.